Hello. So last year I posted a gear video, and today I just wanted to go over some changes that I've made to my gear since last year, and then also just explain a little bit about some of the things I do as I prepare, and also walk through essentially how you fly with your gear and some things you need to keep in mind. So last year, my base weight, if I recall, was maybe about 25 pounds. Plus the fact that I have opted to use a bare canister. I think when it's all was said and done, I was about 35 pounds, which is just over what I wanted to do. So I decided to make some changes this year. And as they say, ounces equal pounds. And so I wanted to walk through the changes I made and why. So first off, very simple one is I actually opted to get a new headlamp. This is extremely lightweight, and this is a night core, and I forget the difference in ounces, but it was substantial enough that it made sense to go ahead and get a different headlamp. The next thing I chose to do is I have this phone shoulder pouch that essentially sits on the strap of my backpack here. Last year I used a fanny pack, and while I really liked that and having easy access to everything, it's just added bulk around the waist along with the pockets that you already have on the pack. And so I just kind of felt like this would be a better option. And also because one of the things I decided I'm not going to bring this year is my camera and all of the gear that goes with that. Like the batteries, the clip, it just was additional weight that while I really enjoyed having the camera, it was something I could drop. So I'm gonna see how it goes this year with just using my phone. But because I no longer will have my camera on my strap here, I can now have this phone pouch. So we'll see if I end up liking that. The other thing is I actually had to switch out my stakes. And this was not actually as a result of weight, but the stakes that came with my tent, which is a Durston X-Mid 1, were these. And for some reason in Colorado last year, these did not hold up at all in the ground. Every single one of them, I think except for this one, bent. And so I went ahead and purchased these new stakes, which are the mini groundhog MSRs. And so hopefully I have a lot more success with these, but I did switch that out. And that was not a decision due to weight, it's just functionality. The next probably biggest change I'm making, and I very much may regret quite quickly, especially given my age and whatnot, but is I am going to now attempt using this Thermarest foam pad. So this is also a short length, and this is 10 ounces. For many years, I've used a blow-up Thermarest with like an R value of 4 something, and I loved it. It was very comfortable, but it was a little bit on the heavier side. And also, I mean, when you're blowing up a mattress every single night and then turning around and having to deflate it every single day, I mean, that does get annoying over time. So not only is this lighter, but it'll be super easy just to lay flat, can, sleep on it, and then in the morning just, accordion style, put it back together again. So we'll see. I'm committing to it. I may end up hating it after night 1, but it is what it is. And I'm hopeful that kind of the weight that I'm saving with this will ultimately be worthwhile. Another simple change I'm making is just my camp shoes. I mean, these are extremely basic flip-flops. I last year had used like the foam Birkenstocks, but these are even lighter. And honestly, I can just pack them in the bag better as well. So I decided to switch out these. One thing I'm actually adding is just a little collapsible cup here. So I typically, the only like containers I have to drink out of are the smart water bottles. And in order to like mix any drinks in there, like if I want to bring any sort of powders or anything that I need to mix up, it just was really hard to do that in those bottles. So I wanted this little collapsible cup, and it's extremely lightweight. So those are the changes that I made. One other thing I just kind of want to talk about gear-wise is I am a big proponent of using this permethrin. It is Not the most nice smelling product, but once it dries, it's fine. But I spray this on all of like the outside surfaces of my bag. I spray it on my tent. I spray it on my clothes. They say not to put it on anything that's like actually touching your body. So like for example, I wouldn't put it on the back of my pack here, but definitely on the bottom and the outside. Socks, I'll do it along the ankles, anything that's going to be on my legs, my arms, and everything. And this helps with tick and even mosquito repellent as well. And I will say that I definitely felt that this was beneficial last year. I did notice a couple ticks, but overall I did not have any problems at all. And I used this when I was on the Appalachian Trail a couple years ago as well. So I definitely feel like this is very beneficial. All right, so some of the things I'm actually not bringing this year in order to help get my base weight down, which is at 22 pounds now, or just around 22, is, as I mentioned, I'm not bringing my camera and all the kind of gear that's associated with that. As far as clothing, I've actually opted to drop 2 more items. So last year I have like a sleeping outfit that I had worn, and then in addition I had like an extra pair of leggings in case I got cold, because I tend just to hike with shorts. I will not be bringing the extra pair of leggings, so I will only be bringing my sleeping leggings. So if for some reason I'm really cold, I will at least have that as an option. Last year I also brought rain pants and never wore them. They're actually quite heavy, and so I'm opting to not bring those this year as well. So those are some of the things that I have dropped, and then as a result of that, and then these additional changes, I was able to drop a few pounds, which was definitely helpful. As far as the weight of my pack, I mean, it's obviously a little bit on the heavier side, and that's as a result of some of the decisions that I personally make. The biggest one being that I'm carrying this Bear Vault. The Bear Vault in and of itself is like 2.25 pounds. And some people will just bring like Ursacs or things like that. For me personally, I like the peace of mind. I know it's a little bit not necessary in some areas. With the trip I'm doing this summer, it actually is required in one section of one of my trips. So if I'm bringing it, I might as well just bring it for everything. And again, it gives me peace of mind. In addition, it actually is a nice seat. So sometimes when you get to camp, you don't want to sit on the ground or whatever, you can actually sit on this like when I'm cooking my meals. So that is a nice little added benefit. The other thing which is added weight is my burst bikes. I don't know if I'll need these, but given kind of snow levels and that sort of thing, I would rather have them with me and not need them than to need them and not have them. So this is something I'm also bringing. They say you pack for your fears. So I think you can kind of tell what some of my fears are, probably the biggest being bears. My trail name is Bear Watcher after all. And so I'm clearly packing for those fears. I mean, in addition to that, as I mentioned, I carry bear spray. And in Colorado, I mean, a lot of people do not carry this. They'll say it's not necessary. But again, peace of mind, packing for my fears. And so these are things that I've chosen that definitely add to my weight, but at least it gives me a peace of mind. Yeah. Last thing I kind of want to talk about is flying with gear. Obviously, given where I live in the Midwest, I'm gonna pretty much have to fly anywhere I want to go. And so there's a lot of things you have to consider when flying. If you look up the TSA guidelines, some of it's a little confusing, and then when you hear stories of like what TSA agents will ultimately do, sometimes it's just up to their discretion what they ultimately decide. And so I've always been someone that wants to err on the side of caution. I don't want to have anything happen to my gear, don't want it to be taken. So ultimately, I have sent my gear out ahead of time that I can't fly with. And I'm probably going to do the same thing this year, but I just want to also talk through what some of the rules are. I will be flying from one city to the next, in which case I cannot send gear ahead. So that's another thing I will mention here. So what can you absolutely not fly with? Let's start with that. So first off being fuel, you cannot fly with this, or bear spray. So for me, I'm gonna, actually, I've got a friend driving out here who will be driving back home. I can send these with her via car, but you cannot even send these in the mail. So these are things that you will actually have to purchase at your destination. What can you take on the plane, but it needs to be in checked luggage. So that would be things like your tent stakes, knives. These obviously cannot be brought on the plane. They need to be in your checked luggage. And then lastly is trekking poles. Now, according to the guidelines, these could not be in a carry-on. Some people get away with it, and others do not. I'm personally not willing to take that risk. I love my trekking poles, and I don't want to have to find a replacement that I may not like as much. And so for me, if I have to check a bag, these are going in there, or I will send them ahead of time if that's also an option. All right, another thing that is a little bit questionable is your stove. So they say that technically these are allowed in checked luggage, but a lot of times if there's any sort of residue left on the stove of any kind, they will decide not to. And so in my case here, this is the actual little stove. And so there could be fuel residue and they could have a concern with it. I know people who are able to fly with these as well, but again, it would have to be in your checked luggage. So what I'm going to do is send this ahead, and then on my next trip, when I've got to go from city to city without the option of sending ahead, it will go in my checked luggage, and then I will hope that I don't have any issues. But this is something that can sometimes be questionable. The other item is your micro spikes. Micro spikes don't really actually have like a spike on them, even though they're called micro spikes. I mean, it's this little, I mean, it is pointy, but this little, like, I don't know what you want to call it, thing here. This is something that some people, again, can get away with in a carry-on. Crampons, which are a much bigger spike, are definitely not allowed. Some people are okay with getting this in a carry-on, but I would also recommend, if you're conservative or you don't want to risk having it taken, is just to put that in checked luggage. And it is allowed in checked luggage, just like your knives and tent stakes are. Another thing, which interestingly enough has to be in your carry-on, it needs to be in the cabin with you, is a lighter. So even though a stove, which might have fuel residue on it, cannot be in the cabin, a lighter must. I'm not sure why, but this cannot be in your checked luggage. And then the second item actually is like your power bank. This has to be on you in the cabin as well. It cannot be in your checked luggage. So those are some of the things that I've kind of learned as far as traveling with my luggage, and again, some of the adjustments that I made this year. So thank you for watching.